Okay, looks like we are live and looks like sound and everything. Let's see. Yep, looks like we're good. Okay, first live show. Welcome. Live from Denver. It is Friday night, and this is Critical Conversations. I am Chris Shelton. I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa Huff.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Hey, critics out there. I love you guys, all my critics who are tuned in here. And excellent. Oh, thank you, Neil. I hope you enjoy my book. It will be fun for you, I think. All right, good. Comments appearing on the screen here. And wow, Kiwiland, Middle Earth. Damn, Jeff, that's awesome. New Zealand. I have got to get down there. We have got to get down there.
I would love to go there.
We have got to do that. I did Australia for obvious reasons. For those of you who've been following me that long, a couple of years ago, I went down to Australia by myself to visit my son for the first time ever. And, best trip ever. Absolutely life-changing, wonderful week. Wonderful, wonderful time. And I did some videos of that at the time. But New Zealand was always next on my list of like places I gotta get to. So anyway, that's awesome. Yes, we did make it successfully through Snowmageddon. Thank you for asking, X.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I imagined it was going to be.
Yeah, you're the native.
Yeah.
I've only been here for about 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, I've seen worse in Minnesota. I mean, this wasn't.
Yeah.
We were really prepared. Like we grocery store, we packed in, we got water, we got flashlights, we were ready. If the power went out, we'd be okay for a few days. I mean, Texas just happened. I mean, anything's kind of possible, but we're not on the weird grid thing that they're on with the more unregulated power distribution or whatever the hell's going on down there with that.
Colorado understands winter.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So, but yeah, it was a little bit anticlimactic. It wasn't nothing. I mean, we had snow. I had to dig out the next day to drive my car. So definitely got the snow shovel out. So there was a little bit of snow. I think.
At least a foot.
What was it? Well, what did they measure out in DIA? It was.
I don't remember about DIA.
I think it was significant. The number that comes to my mind is 41 inches, but that's amazing. I don't know if that's. I might be misremembering.
That might be somewhere else in the state. That might have been. Something.
Might have been. It's just what I have in my head, and it could definitely be wrong. But it was a lot of snow. We definitely did hit it, and it's been melting off all week. I lived in Minnesota I did Sea Org projects in Minnesota for about 3 or 4 years, off and on. And that's when I experienced my first Minnesota winter. And then after I left the Sea Org, I moved to Minnesota, and I lived there for about 2 years or so. And then I came out here. Okay, so yeah, Melissa is the Colorado native.
Yep. I am.
Yeah, exactly. In Maryland, if it even does, people freak out. We were laughing all week, actually, about stories of comparing one state to another. I was telling my mom about all this, too. How, when I was in Minnesota, we were laughing at how badly prepared New York was, of all places. You'd think of a state where they would have or the city where they would have their snow stuff worked out. They didn't. But I think that was the year that Atlanta was getting snow or something, and everybody was freaking out about that.
It wasn't even that much. It was like a few inches.
Yeah, it was, if that, if it was even an inch. I mean, it's Atlanta, I think it was just a little smattering. Anyway, so yeah. Before I forget, and before I get a riot starting in the comments section, let's check in with Seven. There's our Seven cam. There he is, all bundled up. Now, last week, I think it was, he was in the back in the cabinet because we didn't have anything in the cabinets yet.
Yeah.
We busted out our board games this week, so you can see we're still in a state of whatever with the
disarray.
Yeah, with some of the stuff out there. But that's where Seven makes his stand. He sits there and just sleeps and does whatever cats do. So that's our first check-in with Seven there on the Seven cam. Wow, it's a heat wave out in Stockholm. Or Stockton, sorry, Stockton. Heat wave 8 months out of the year. Yeah, exactly. And then you're in Tahoe. Yep. Okay, guys. So good times. 1 second. Needed that. Sorry. Yeah, raid the Aquanorg. That might be kind of fun. All right. Well, this is the show where we get to kind of let our hair down and just sort of say what's on our mind and chat with you guys. And oh, yeah. And speaking of, we've got a call in the queue right now. So this is excellent. We will be on to that in just a second. Just want to say that this is the casual time, you know. And my podcast this week will address a little kerfluffle that happened this week in Clearwater with the Cult City tours. I went on a little bit of a roll on that and talked about protests and the nature of them and my ideas about Scientology protesting, because people have asked me about that a lot. And the Cult City tours is not officially a protest or a demonstration, you know, but it kind of has a lot of parallels with what is, you know, in terms of purpose and as social, you know, social justice activism, that kind of thing. So anyway, I comment about all that, talk about that, and then comment a bit about the city council. Because the city council, there was a video posted on Mark Bunker's channel, of the city council meeting in Clearwater this week in response to, and they talked a great deal about this Cult City Tours kerfluffle and some of the backlash from it. And completely in the course of that entire nonsensical dialogue and diatribe of bullshit, they completely missed the point of how the whole nonsense started and who was actually responsible and instigated the whole thing. Spoiler, it was Scientology. Mm-hmm. And Scientology walked away from that whole thing scot-free, right? Total pass. And I thought that was disgusting. So I had some ripe comments to make on that topic. Anyway, let me take this call. All right, come in. Hello. Hello? I am not hearing you. Let me make sure that I don't have a volume problem on my phone. No. Just nothing coming in here. Okay, well that's a bummer. Let's go ahead and drop that call, but if you want to call back, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Gotta skip that one. Sorry about that. Okay, well, we will continue here.
It's a new interface, it looks like, too.
Yeah, it's got a new little interface. I'm hoping that's not... There were some changes made in the software we use, the site we use, the service we use to get calls in, and I lost the connection there. Interesting. Okay, well, maybe we're having some technical difficulties this week. I hope not. I'm going to turn get the show started again. Something just kicked off on here, and I have to call back in. So 1 moment while I do that. This is, after all, a call-in show, and I do want to talk to you guys, so I apologize for this little weird delay here. All right.
Thank you for calling Call-In Studios host and call screener line.
Now you get to hear what he does every week.
That's right. This is
Enter your 6-digit PIN.
Little setup I do every
week. Welcome, host. You are now in the host room and can manage your callers from the Call-In Studio web interface.
All right. And there was a call in the queue. Hello?
Your web interface.
All right. Oh, hey. Hi.
Hey.
I got through.
There you are. Yeah, boom. I just picked it up because you were right there.
Oh, no, I'm getting reverb. I've got to turn off my TV. There we go.
Yes,
Okie doke. Hey, guys. Really great podcast that you have. I think you offer a lot of thought-provoking stuff, not just about Scientology, but in life, and I appreciate it greatly.
Great.
And I have a question calling here from Canada.
Yeah, what you got?
So I live Yeah, well, see, I live in Vancouver, which is actually a really wealthy city. Probably one of the most expensive real estate in Vancouver. Lots of money in it. Lots of things going through it. Our Scientology church, or quote, air quotes, church, looks totally run down. No one's ever in it. Nothing's going on, ever. Period, dead stop. But one thing that's unique about Canada to the States is that they don't have religious status here. And so what that means is that all the protections and all the things that Scientology has, say, in America or anywhere else that it's got the religious protections under law, don't exist here. So I'm just curious how Canadian Scientologists may have, circumvented or gone around the system to, like, say, get their money back, or, without having all these legal protections or surplus of money even to hide behind. How do they sort of deal with that outside of the law when they're not protected by the law that way?
Well,
just a thought. And maybe Canada could be an example of what America would be like if they got their laws revoked, right?
Well, in some ways, yes. And in fact, that's a good point you make, because they don't have the religious protections up there. Now, Canada's got pretty different laws to America. There's a lot of similarities, but the speech laws up there are a little different from the speech laws down here, for example. And I'm not complaining about them. I'm just saying they're kind of different, right? And Scientology morphs itself to the environment that it's in. It's a little alien-like that way, right? It's kind of like, mutates until it figures out the environment that it's in. But it's trying to do one thing, basically, which is siphon money. And so whatever the mechanisms that are in play in the country that is hosting it are going to be the way they're going to figure out the fine tuning of the details that, all exist under the hood. You're not going to see any of that. You're not going to hear about any of that. All you'll see and hear as a public Scientologist, and even as a staff member and Sea Org member, actually, is you're only going to see and hear about the policy of the church and how the church is supposed to operate according to what L. Ron Hubbard says. And that's, how they present, and that's how they talk, even amongst themselves. It's really when you get down to Office of Special Affairs activity that you get into these kind of details that the devil exists in, I guess you could say, right?
Right. Okay, I see. But I mean, it seems like they've almost come to an arrested development here in Canada. I mean, they purchased a great deal, a big parcel of land out in Ontario, which was a resort. It's, you know what I mean? It seemed like there was almost like ducks getting lined up here. And then, when things start getting a bit more selfish with their PR, or just, I don't know, it just seemed like there was a real downfall and a real lack of effort in that respect to sort of continue on building up Canada. I don't know. No,
you're not wrong.
No, and for the better.
No, you're not wrong at all. Let me tell you something else about what goes on in Scientology that'll help explain that for you. Is that Scientology goes in fits and starts. It goes in waves. According to, basically, David Miscavige's whims, as I've come to learn. When I was in the Sea Org, we didn't know where the hell it was coming from. We would have different priorities come down at different times. It didn't make any damn sense. We assigned it to our managers. I came to learn, no, it's all coming out of David Miscavige's mouth, right? So Canada will get attention for a little while. And then they move on. Then there's something else to put attention on, right? And Canada has always been a almost non-existent continent. They call them cons in the management terminology, right? Canada is its own management division. Like Scientology, management-wise, has divided Canada into its own geographic zone. And so they have their own middle management system, and it's like 3 people, 4 people. And it's servicing a tiny continent of I mean, you could probably measure how many active Scientologists there are in all of Canada, in less than this many thousand, actually probably less than 3,000 people. I mean, and that's being generous. So,
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of people. At their peak, it's never been a lot of people in Canada, and that's one of the other reasons why Canada gets short shrift, right? It's just not they're just not paying attention, and there's no money going into
I'm
Canada.
Happy there's not an active growth going on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't want that.
Yeah.
But you do make an interesting point, though, about the difference in the religious status, because what that does is afford Scientology the ability in the United States to engage in fundraising activities that they probably wouldn't be able to so easily get away with in other parts of the world. I'm not saying they can't do any fundraising in other parts of the world, but there's some things you get away with because of religious tax exemption, because of the write-off that you get on your taxes in the United States. Right. You don't get that in Canada. Right? You can get a lot more money out of people who've got a lot more money by, that's an incentive for them to give over and make it what looks like a charitable religious donation. That doesn't happen in Canada, right? So those kind of differences can...
Or maybe it even just gets funneled out of Canada. Who knows, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Which is possible, yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, thanks. Now I know something about Canada, eh? I appreciate it, Chris.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for calling.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thanks. You guys have a good night. Take care. Thanks. Bye.
All right. Cool. And we have another one in the queue here. Let's go ahead and pick this up. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hello, yeah. I was the guy who tried to call earlier.
Sorry about that.
So, it's okay. So, I was going to talk a bit about your title there, Occult Predictions.
Yeah.
So,
what you got?
I'm not sure personally. I'll relate a story from at the start of the pandemic. I read an article about what marketing might look like in 50 years' time, and I think it was Procter & Gamble, but don't quote me on that did a brand campaign for what a perfume might look like in 50 years' time. And it was two people in robes, because you've become so used to disease, listening to an older man and his received wisdom. And the advertisers predicted that culturally we were going to fall back on a lot of received wisdom. And I said to my mother at the time that I didn't actually believe that was correct. Instead, that it would become a recruiting ground for extreme political movements and for cults. And I think that what we've seen on both sides of the spectrum, especially with QAnon in the United States over the past year, might just have vindicated that. So I was wondering, personally, what do you think, or what should we think really is the future of something as absurd as QAnon once people can get back out onto the streets and talk to real people rather than being shut off at home with nothing but a comm line to Fox, OAN, or the message boards where they keep propagating this?
Right, exactly. Great question. And you're hitting exactly on the thing I was going to talk about. So kudos to you, because you hit me. It's exactly what I was going to talk about. Because here's what I'm thinking, right? I suck at predictions. I don't do predictions. That's why I kind of laughed when I did the title today. But I will speak in general, broad terms about the direction I think we're gonna see when over the next few months and year or so, right? Years really with this, because of the influence of the internet. I mean, QAnon is, as I was telling Mel before the show, QAnon is the most spectacular, the most fantastical, the wildest of these internet guru cult sort of things. Actually, I shouldn't even throw the word guru in there, but just kind of internet cults. And
Absolutely.
But it's far from the only one. Far from the only one, right? I mean, and we've seen two different basic kinds. If I was going to typify or categorize, I'd say you have your standard in real life guru model, charismatic leader cult that can use the internet for recruitment, for retention, even for delivery of the belief system. You see this with, you saw this with Stefan Molyneux, Teal Swan, as a couple examples off the top of my head of like people who developed cults of personality around themselves on the internet. And that's a model. Yeah. And then there's this QAnon thing, and that's sort of more of a decentralized, apparently leadership-less, except not really. Somebody's running the show. There are people who are influencers, celebrities, people who are basically
Congress women.
Yeah, and with Q, of course, you have the Q interpreters. I forgot what they were called. I forgot the word for them. Yeah. But, the cooks or something, whatever.
The whisperers, I think.
Yeah, these guys, right? They were going to take in terms of received wisdom, right? They're taking the Q drops and they are interpreting them for the masses, right? And you had varying narratives and competing narratives and different things. And so those cultures are a sociologist's dream and nightmare, I think, at the same time. Same with, people like me, cult-type psychology type people. There's just such a spectrum of things going on there. So,
I mean,
will that continue? Yeah, absolutely it will. We will see more of that. But to speak to your question about once people start getting out and about more, I was thinking that now that the vaccines, apparently we've got a third of the country now vaccinated. And that's significant. I mean, that's pretty impressive. And the president himself has gone on and said, hey, look, by July 4th, I think things will be back to normal. And I'm thinking it's probably going to happen. It's going to start looking like it's normal again way before July 4th. Because people are just desperate to get out and start getting socializing again. And it's tomorrow's the first day of spring. People are going to be like, okay, it's time, right? With that is going to come Scientology and all these other groups are going to be out there again in full force. And they're going to be very motivated because they just had a year of deprivation.
Yep.
Scientology had to board up its doors. So they are desperate for statistics right now. They're hungry. And so you're going to see a lot of drive on the part of not just Scientology, but a lot of these groups. And here's the thing that's going to suck people up is we've all been indoors for about a year. There's some stress. There's some trauma there. Right? There's increased anxiety and stress and trauma from pre-existing conditions. Pre-existing meaning pre-COVID situations, right? Yeah. And so stress levels have been a little high. And as you said, quite correctly, people have been, on the social media or on the going down the internet rabbit holes. So there will be a dampening effect on some of that crazy because people will be, interacting live again. And that'll fill a lot of holes for people emotionally and stuff. But with these culty people out there delivering, the pseudoscience stuff of we can relieve you of the stress and tension and trauma and horribleness of your last year because it's really either your chakras that are out of alignment or it's, you weren't getting your supplements or you weren't, getting the healing crystal up your whatever part.
What's the egg on goop?
Yeah, the goop stuff, right? Okay, so I'm talking an awful lot here. I'm not really giving you a chance to, so you go ahead now. But this is where I think things are going to, I think we're going to see this.
Yeah, well, not to draw an equivalence between the two, obviously, but I have a mad respect for you personally because right back when all those gigantic protests started, you had the bravery to do a couple of podcasts on what you were concerned about at the core of the Black Lives Matter movement.
I was, Thank you.
One of the things that has come out since, which I don't think should really surprise anyone, is that all the sociologists are all saying now that we cannot divorce the sheer scale of this and why it spread worldwide from the fact that everyone across the world was locked up.
That's right.
This was an excuse. This was a reason to get outside, and nobody could morally tell you to go back inside when you're protesting police brutality, could they?
Exactly.
This was an excuse to get out. For a lot of people, this was an excuse to get outside. And for better or worse, I think this is one of the reasons why quite a bit of the stuff that happened straight afterwards is already being reversed. I mean, Cops was uncancelled. Most of these corporations have gone right back to exploiting third world labor and everything.
That's
it
right.
hasn't produced a lot of lasting change. And I mean, unfortunately, we're not just talking about the stuff people are like, oh my God, this is absurd. It's not really produced a lot of the lasting good change, the police reforms in a lot of states. And I think that's a shame.
Yeah, me too.
But I agree with you. A lot of this is to do with the fact that everybody was locked up. And on that note, I'm a bit more concerned about smaller cults. Because one benefit to everybody being on social media and everybody having access to a round-the-clock news cycle is that everybody who isn't already down the QAnon rabbit hole knows what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's impossible to get away from. But for every QAnon, there are dozens of other groups that nobody's heard of, but are doing the same thing.
That's right.
I find it interesting that there's an ex-Scientologist who I used to watch. I'm not going to name him on the show, who fell into another cult, like I think it was a martial arts cult or something, very quickly out of Scientology. And he's talking about this on a video, and he said that, I've always been a spiritual person. I've always been searching for the meaning of life. And I'm sorry, that makes you an easy mark for these people.
Yeah, that's right.
I think part of the problem...
If I might...
I think part of the problem... Sorry. Yeah.
Well, I thought I might contribute something else to this of what you're discussing right now, because... and I'm anxious to say it before I forget it. You know how it goes when you're in a conversation. And of course, now I'm already forgetting it. The exposure of there was a video a couple weeks ago, a very funny one on Saturday Night Live about murder documentaries. And how women across America are addicted to murder documentaries. Did you see it?
It was like a music video.
It's a music video.
I did.
It's hilarious, right? It's very funny. And then it flips the script at the very end and says all the guys have been into all these cult shows, right? And they've been watching these cult shows, and you just consumed by it, interested by it, go down the rabbit hole of it. It's very entertaining. You can't take your eyes away from it. But what I'm afraid of, what I'm actually quite afraid of, and I really wish I had numbers on this as to but there's nobody's doing any studies on this, is how many of those people are watching these shows, going down these rabbit holes and thinking the entire time, telling themselves, wow, these things are so crazy. Sure, good thing I'm never going to fall for any of this. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
I mean, that was my mother's concern whenever I started researching Scientology a bit more seriously. She said to me, do you agree with it? And I told her straight, no, I don't agree with it. I don't think anyone who knows enough about it agrees with it. I teach school, and I told my kids the OT3 story in class, and I asked them, is he telling the truth or is he lying? And one of the kids piped up immediately and said, he's lying, obviously. I'm not sure what to... he's lying. I mean, so we were learning English as a second language, and we were doing the past tense, and in 8 sentences, you change one aspect. We went from, I went to Britain last week with my brother, to I went to space a million years ago with my dinosaur. They were writing ridiculously large numbers, so I told them the story about L. Ron Hubbard saying how far back he went.
Oh, okay.
And they were... Yeah, they were absolutely shocked that anyone believed that. So I told them the OT3 story. I told them what was on OT8. And they had a great laugh at this. But then I said, do you know the worst part of this, guys? There are people who believe this, and they are sending millions and millions of dollars into this. And they were aghast. They couldn't believe people actually believed this. And how this relates to what you just said is that... I'm not sure personally whether I share your concern about people who research cults finding something like, oh, I believe in it. When people like myself look are looking at this from the outside in, and we know the secrets that these cult leaders keep from their followers to keep them in the cult.
That's right.
So
that's right.
I'm not sure whether I think that it will actually convert anyone.
Well, let me let me be clear about something, because what and maybe I was, I'm not sure, but I want to clarify myself. What I'm concerned about is that people are watching these shows thinking to themselves that they are smarter than all the people who got involved in all these groups, that the rabbit hole that they've gone down. And they'll never fall for anything like that because they're too smart, see? And that's the wrong lesson to walk away with if that's what you're thinking watching this stuff. You know, there's a lot of people who do Scientology watching and cult watching and murder show watching, right? It's almost the same thing as watching these murder shows and then thinking, well, I'm too smart to get murdered. It has nothing to do with it. You know, getting murdered has nothing to do with how smart you are. If somebody wants to kill you, they're going to kill you.
Intelligence makes you a cult, Mark.
Well, exactly.
Well, intelligence makes you a cult, Mark.
Exactly.
So.
That's why I'm actually a little afraid. That's why that fear exists in me, because I'm like, you know, if you walk away from this with the wrong lesson, you know, So.
Yeah, you might not. It's like the people who go. It's like knowing what QAnon is. You might not catch on to QAnon, but if you are in a similar frame of mind, you can be recruited into something else, something that's smaller and something that's going to suck you away easier because nobody knows what it is.
Exactly. You got it, man.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you for calling.
Great. You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Good call. Appreciate that. All right. Gonna let you go. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Cool. That was fun. I enjoyed that call. Yeah. Just checking up on some of the comments that I was missing as we were going along there. Yeah, Christopher's nailing it here, right? Best antidote to keeping away from cults is, you say, critical reasoning and instillment of skepticism. That is it. If you were going to really bring it down to a simplicity of what are you trying to get across to people, these are cautionary tales. These are not looky-loo tales of stupidity. When you're watching people who have gotten involved in cults, traumatic situations, narcissistic relationships, both men and women, and kids for that matter, and they get stuck and saddled with these terrorizing people in their lives or groups that are messing with them, you know, nobody deserves that. Nobody saw it coming. And as you guys know, you know, I'll get off my soapbox right now because I get a little excited about that. But, you know, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Okay, we got some other calls in the queue, so let us pick these up. Yeah. First one, actually, they're still going through screening. Let's go ahead and let them finish that first. And, okay, good. I see that one there. And, yeah, that was basically that cult prediction I was going to throw out was basically what I responded to in that phone call. I just, I felt that there was going to be, like he said, small groups. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Is I think we're going to see the rise of smaller cultic groups, you know, and we're not even going to see it because it's not going to get reported on. You guys would be amazed at some of the emails I get from people, and my heart goes out because I can't do anything about, or I can't do something about every group out there. And I get emailed about little church groups, little Napoleons running little churches out in the Vale, out in the middle of nowhere, and they suckered up whole towns. You know, they got whole people, and they're just like, you know, following these guys, and it's just there's so much of it. You just go, Jesus Christ. How do you know? And all I can think to do is just, you know, try to work harder at the education side of it, because I can't do one for one, and you know, it's just target practice. There's so many of these groups out there, and there probably will always be, you know, to a degree. It's
unfortunate, but true.
Yeah. Okay, let's pick up this first one. Hello, is this Chris?
Hi, yes, this is Chris.
Hi, Chris. This is Chris.
Hold on. 1 second.
All right.
So I wanted to just quickly, again, bolster what I said before and what you just explained. And like a lot of the main points of your channel that I've been a fan for a while. I read your book,
Awesome.
So my life, people have told me throughout my childhood, thankfully, one of the things that I've been able to enjoy is people say, oh, you're pretty smart. I'm well read and I can do great things with school and my grades are fine. But as you grow up, when people tell you over and over that you're smart, I believe as you've been communicating, that kind of primes you to believe almost everything that you might think. If you come across some kind of cult and you have that immediate thought of, wow, this sounds really cool. And you have people throughout your life saying that, oh, you're smart, you're going to be very inclined to just believe that, and being smart, I really believe leads you into cult thinking more, unless you approach everything with skepticism. Not only do you have to be good at critical reasoning, but you also have to have that feeling of, I gotta approach everything I read being skeptical and think about what is their aims, what do they want me to do from this information, all that, everything you read. And the moment you let that guard down, I feel like you can get swept in right away to any kind of cult or any kind of lesser, any kind of cult situation. It doesn't have to be a cult, destructive cult per se. It could be groupthink, like a smaller version. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I just wanted to mention how much I've loved, how much that you've been able to show me that in my life, because I had some situations in the past, as I think we've all do in our closet, things that we kind of push away that we've done. You apply it every day, your skepticism, and you'll realize how much people are trying to sucker you into things. And whether they have good intentions or bad intentions, it doesn't even really matter, because they can still try to suck you. A lot of people in Scientology don't have bad intentions.
That's right.
I think most of them don't. I mean, some people I must imagine, right? I don't know what the number is, but these people are trying to sucker you in because it'll make them feel good, regardless of whether they think they're going to destroy you or not. Because they most of the time they don't.
That's right.
Just, as I'm saying,
That's right.
So anyway, thanks, Chris Schelt. Thanks a lot. Hi, Melissa. It's great to meet you guys. So
awesome, man.
That's really it. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and thanks for calling in. That was a great message.
I hope that I was on point. I wasn't prepared. I just saw your stream and I just randomly clicked. I'm like, okay, I got to say hi. It's a great opportunity.
No, totally.
I love all the upgrades you've done to your studio and everything. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. All right, Chris. Talk to you, man. Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Bye-bye, guys.
Goodbye.
Cool. What a nice call. And let me speak to that a second, because that's a really good point. I mean, Chris is making a really good point there. And it has to do with ego, right? Because there's this status thing that we have. I learned early on that physically I was not going to be dominant. So I had to. So what do you do? What do you do when that happens? I think anybody, I'm going to dominate some other way.
Yeah, verbally or.
That's right, with my smarts, right? I'm going to figure this out. And you learn early on if you're quick. I was a quick reader. I was quick to the math stuff. I was quick to memorize stuff, so I could rattle stuff off, and adults were pleased with me. The other kids not necessarily weren't, but hey, they're the ones who counted, right? They're the ones with power and authority. And so, you figure out your way as you navigate through the world. And so smarts can become a commodity. Smarts can become a superpower, and they can get you through things that, you wouldn't otherwise. And this is how you build some self-esteem and some morale and some feeling of self-worth. But of course, us humans, we can, of course, take that too far, get too much praise, too much approval, too much, self-empowerment. And, and then you're making stupid decisions. So there's a humility factor. And it's interesting how the most smart people, the smartest people in history, the ones who really knew what they were talking about, constantly caution against this. There are quotes you can find from almost all of them through history of, the more I know, the more I find out I don't know. The more I realize I don't know anything. The
older you get, the less you know.
Yeah, exactly. Even Richard Feynman, right, was something like, anybody who says they know what who understands quantum physics doesn't understand quantum
No.
physics, right?
Yeah.
Probably one of the smartest guys who ever lived, I mean, it's just like, there's just these like, these things, these tips you pick up because you cross that threshold of the Dunning-Kruger effect. You cross that threshold of thinking you're the shit because you know some things, and realizing after you have a few severe reality adjustments, you fall on your face, in other words, make a mistake, do something stupid, and realize you're not so damn smart. And then you come to realize, oh, maybe there's something to this. Anyway, good stuff there. Okay, let us take this other call we've had in the queue here for a few minutes from Travis, who has been patiently waiting. Hello.
Greetings.
Hey, Travis.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Melissa.
Hello.
Hey, I have two questions for you tonight. They're a little different. First, Chris, you had done an interview with, do you remember with the woman named Nora?
Yep, Nora
some
Crest.
time ago?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, listen, y'all had talked about, for a brief moment in one of those interviews, that there are 4 positions that are mandated, that are required at the local Scientology org, which need to be filled in order for statistics to be regarded as valid and that you can send up line. Do you happen to remember, that fact from your time at Sun?
I remember that in order for the overall statistic of the org itself, which is the statistic is called paid completions, which is how many people completed a paid service that week, and there's a point system to the type of service that major services are more points than minor services, for example. In order for that statistic to be counted, you have to have an executive director, an HCO area secretary, a qualifications secretary, and I can't remember the 4th one. Qualsec, I think. It's the specifics of that kind of minutia escapes me these days, but that's what I remember. I remember a Qualsec. Oh, Qualsec and SSO. You had to have a Qualsec, SSO, HAS, and a PPO. That was it. Those were the 4 postings. The personnel.
You're telling me that so you're telling me that a local org could be really breaking down barriers with selling this, selling that, and if they have one of those positions not filled, forget it. The uplines aren't going to be. They're just not going to get counted, right?
No, it doesn't work that way. The way it works is the statistic is reported anyway. It's reported as paid completions without penalty. So you have 2 statistics going up, PDC and PDC without. Those are what they're called, right? PDC, so if it's goose eggs because you don't have those posts filled, which was the case for most organizations, by the way, then it was just 0, but the PDC without was still reported, and you could still judge the executive director and his job and his efficiency by that statistic.
Oh, okay. So they're not completely left dangling there.
No. Nope.
All right. So thanks for answering that. Now I have another question for you, and this is my last one.
All right. No problem. I like your questions, Travis.
Yeah. Hey, good. Thank you. How much of the cultic mind control that you saw in Scientology and have studied since then, do you see in multi-level marketing groups like Beachbody, like what are some of the other ones? LuLaRoe.
Oh yeah,
and there are a number of them.
There's tons.
You see any translation there?
I think it's a direct...
Oh yeah, Amway.
Oh yeah, Amway is the biggest, most successful. MLMs are cults. I mean, it's a 1-for-1. It's not like they check all the boxes. All the indications are there. All the red flags are the same. The retention techniques are the same. So the psychological mechanisms of abuse are the same. The rapaciousness of it, the lies, the deception, it's all there. There is nothing straight and honest about MLMs. They are rapacious criminal activities.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I have very
Recently, I've
strong
been looking
opinions
at
about it. I did.
No, and
You're using
so,
words like rapacious.
Well, yeah, rapacious. I don't get to use that word very often, Travis. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
well, that's the word of the day then. So, quite honestly, with your studies and your experience in Scientology, I think you're uniquely qualified, and your channel, I think you're uniquely qualified to really put out a lot of information about multi-level marketing groups, because quite honestly, I don't think a lot of people out there would put, hey, they use the same techniques as Scientology. Now, if I think people put those two things together, multi-level marketing recruitment would go down into the toilet. That's my opinion.
I hear you, and let me let you know that this is further along than you might imagine, because there's a guy who I've actually had on my podcast this year. His name is Robert Fitzpatrick, and he wrote a book called Ponzi-nomics. And he has been beating the street on this for years. And his book is a complete takedown of the entire subject. And so we talked extensively about it. And I also interviewed a woman who was a former Beachbody, actually, MLMer. And she got out and figured out what the hell, and she's been running her own YouTube channel. And there are more than a couple of those. There are people who are stepping up, stepping out, and speaking out about the MLM problem. And of course, we've seen John Oliver do bits on this, and another infotainment and docu news shows and stuff like that. So there is a word out there, and this is becoming known about, but you're right that it needs a lot more exposure, and I do intend on doing more about that on my channel in the future.
Yeah, good. And I'll tell you, just from a layman's perspective, from looking at all of the ex-MLM people, now I just happened to come across a lot of LuLaRoe, ex-LuLaRoe. Most of them are women. In fact, all the videos I saw were from women, but doesn't mean there aren't men there. But what I noticed, and this is the parallel that I saw with Scientology, well, there are two. And the first one is they're selling community.
Mm-hmm.
They got, with LuLaRoe, apparently they're selling leggings with, I don't know, a lot of women like leggings apparently. So that's great. In LuLaRoe, but the product was really secondary. They were selling, first, you got all these friends and community and blah, blah, blah. And so that's cult, right? Culty stuff.
Yep.
And it was, so that's kind of like what Scientology does. Well, you got all these friends and blah, blah, blah. And the second thing was that I saw that really jumped out at me, that was a common thread throughout all of it, well, the videos, I mean, was that these women were told, you can improve yourself in your life, in your family, if they were married and had kids, and your husband's going to be great, or maybe nowadays they can get married, maybe they had a wife, whatever. So, and all of this magic Beachbody and LuLaRoe stuff will just solve all this stuff, and it's going to be an answer to all of these questions. You're going to be so wonderful and successful. Oh my gosh, the advertising, the PR on that, I'd want to sign up.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly. That's the whole point.
And these women...
That's the whole point, it is the broad appeal of, it's checking off boxes of emotional needs. And what goes over people's heads, what they kind of miss is... and the reason why they miss it is because they're watching this material, or they're interested in this material in the first place, because they've got a problem to solve. They don't have enough money. They don't have enough time. There is some problem in their life dealing with, probably an economic one, that is really hurting them. And here is what appears to be the easiest, most direct, most do-it-yourself, turnkey toolkit to happiness and success. And just look at all these mansions and yachts that all these people have, right? So the appeal to emotion here is so strong, just like Scientology. A business should not be appealing to your emotions to hire you. And that's basically what MLMs are doing with these recruitment videos is they're making out that they're, signing you up as members of this thing and you're going to work and this is going to be a business opportunity. It's presented, as a business opportunity. But then they go into nothing but personal information and personal appeals. So, and somehow this just flies over people's heads when they're into the recruitment process of it.
Well, here's the thing, and this is the same thing that I saw with Scientology. And correct me if you think this is not an apt description. In Scientology, the individual walking in off the street is the product. Yeah, they get information, but really, how somebody feels and thinks is in self-improvement is the product, and that appears to be the same thing with the MLMs.
Yes, you're nailing it. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to get them into a headspace.
Sometimes I get things right.
Yeah, you get things right all the time. I mean, it's the headspace. You're trying to get the person into this emotionally based, emotion-driven headspace of hope and awe and fervor and excitement and it's getting, at a biological level, it's clearly getting you high, on the endorphins and stuff, right? And you're just like, woohoo, this is the best and most exciting thing ever. That's not the place you want to be when you're making serious life decisions. But that's where they put you and tell you that's how you should feel all the time. It's crazy. It's totally culty.
Well, you want to talk about lawsuits? Oh my gosh, they got lawsuits out the rear end. A lot of these companies,
yes,
and
they do,
rightfully so.
Yep.
Because you want to talk about ruined lives. It's not as bad as I've heard Scientology has messed people up. But geez,
yeah.
Well, anyway, thanks for taking my call this week.
Absolutely, Travis. Thank you for calling. Those were really good points.
All right, take care.
All right, man. Bye-bye. All right, good deal there. Now, we have gone through a whole show.
Yeah.
And we didn't hit 7, just the once. So let's hit him again. There he is. Let's get the 7 cam in there.
Fuzzy.
Our little fuzz ball of love. And, this almost, sometimes he gets so still that you really can't even tell he's moving or even breathing. But this is not a photo. That is cam of 7. And there he sits. So, yeah. Okay. So there's our little bundle of joy. Okay. Good stuff. I'm glad some of these comments are quite favorable. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Okay, yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing, Dreaming Cat Studio. That's exactly right. We all have hopes and dreams, so all can be vulnerable. That is, thank you. That is the best way of putting that. I've never thought of putting it exactly that way, but that's exactly the problem. And it's not a problem. That's the thing. It's a feature of the human condition that we have hopes and dreams. It's not a bug, but it's just that constant back and forth of we have critical thinking and imagination, therefore we have woo and pseudoscience and cults. And these are the two sides of the coin. You get one, you want one, you got to deal with the other. It's like you want freedom of speech. Well, then guess what?
Everybody else gets freedom of speech
right. too. Some people are going to say some shit you don't want to hear.
Yep.
And that's just how that is. That is good to hear, Kevin, about the Amway layoffs. Can I quote you, Chris? You can always quote me. Although on that business there, I was quoting. Where'd she go? Dreaming Cat Studio. Cash is trapped. Give me all your money. Exactly. Thanks, Grant. All right, so I think somebody was asking earlier if I saw it on the comments right. Somebody was asking about small groups. Why I thought cults would be forming up in small groups. I don't know. Maybe I misread the comments there, but I didn't particularly explain myself there. I believe that we will see a rise in the number of those things, though, because of the increased awareness about cults. And so what we're going to see is groups or individuals who are really working to try to figure out how to form up cults that don't look like the cults you see on Netflix. Right? But
They're
still
evolving. Oh no.
Yeah, but there's still going to be cults. I mean, all those mechanisms are still going to be at play. And remember
God.
that. I'm sorry, baby.
I just said, oh God, they're evolving and
Oh yeah.
they're gonna get scarier.
Yes. Yeah, they will morph. Absolutely, they will. Remember, just like the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, life finds a way. It wants to survive. And so do groups and cults, right? That is the thing. But also what I was going to point out is, remember, as I am learning, domestic violence, right? Familial violence situations, intimate partner violence, as well as gangs, business opportunities, MLMs, large group awareness trainings, cults, or otherwise known as high control groups or authoritarian groups or high demand groups. That's one of my favorites. These are all operating on the same principles, right? And when you really step back, and then of course there's human trafficking, which also uses the same dynamics of personal and psychological and societal control measures. So what you're looking at with all of this is really integral to, I mean, when you really get down to the basics of this stuff, it's really integral to the human experience. It's not, I used to kind of think about this stuff as a disease or a virus or something we could cure or something within us that we could somehow make go away. And it doesn't, and I've come to really accept that it just doesn't work that way. It's not like that. It's more one of those things of you have to learn how to self-discipline yourself through critical thinking and skepticism and rational reasoning. That's how you just have to train yourself to do that. In the same way, it's not organic for all of us to have a six-pack, but if you want it, you can have it. You just got to work for it, right? You got to do certain things.
And some people more than others.
Well, yeah, exactly. And I don't mean to compare these two things, really apples and oranges, but just you got to work for it is what I'm trying to say. It's a discipline more than it is a virus or something, in terms of a solution for this is really where I'm going with that. In other words, we're never going to have a law on the books, a regulation in place that's going to be perfect, that's going to nail it, that's going to be the exact right wording for every L. Ron Hubbard and David, Koresh and Keith Raniere and, Jim Jones out there, and it's just going to cover them all. It's never going to work that way. It's always going to take us and our awareness and our pushback on people who want to take advantage of others. That's just how it is. Anyway, so that's I guess another one of my predictions. And that's a prediction I would be I don't know. I'd say more than happy to be wrong about, but I don't know. I don't know about that, because if I am wrong, I'd like to know how. That would be an interesting take. Okay, so, Cult City comments. Debbie asks, watch my podcast tomorrow. I spent 45 minutes commenting on nothing but that. I don't want to try to encapsulate it here. I talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the show, but I really went into some detail about it and the city council meeting that they had this week and all of it. I talk about that stuff. So please do check out my podcast tomorrow for stuff about that. I will say, spoiler, that the Clearwater City Council has their heads up their ass, and that's my technical.
That's your summary.
Highly academic criticism of the Clearwater City Council. Yes, is they got their head up their ass. Yeah. Oh my God, what could I tell you about Peter Gillum and his wife Yvonne and his family? You got an hour or two? Yeah, good stuff. Oh, yeah. Obviously, except for Mark Bunker. Sorry, I should have been clear about that. Mark Bunker, and I am clear in the podcast about it, too. The Cult City is Clearwater. Yes. All right, guys, this has been some fun. We're going to wrap up. Time to move on to the wrap-up. Just because we always try to do things in threes, because 3 is a magic number in many ways. Well, not everything in threes. We don't do 3 cards, but we do 7 cams. Ha! Got you with that surprise 7 cam. All right. There he is, still
being 7.
basically. Yeah. Okay, good. That's our 7 camp for the
All
week.
right.
And let us now randomly pull a card. In fact, let's do it this way. Pick a card, any card.
If one of them will come out.
There you go. All right.
Oh, here we go.
Okay, optimism bias. Okay, so this is my deck of critical thinking and logical fallacy cards. And sorry, we just got disconnected on the phone again, but that is okay because
No, I don't think anyone was waiting.
we didn't have anybody waiting, so we didn't lose anybody. Okay, where'd that card go? Here we go. Okay, so this is critical thinking and logical fallacies on these cards. That's what these are. And we draw one every week. And this week it is optimism bias. You overestimate the likelihood of positive outcomes. That itself can be a logical fallacy. You can be too optimistic. There can be benefits to a positive attitude, but it's unwise to allow this to affect our ability to be realistic. Ironically, if you're making more rational judgments, you'll actually have a lot more to feel positive about. All right, so there's our critical thinking card for the week. Okay, guys. So let us go ahead and wrap up. Watch the podcast tomorrow, please. I think you guys will enjoy it. I basically rant a bit, but I go over some stuff about protests and stuff like that. And it's going to be my sort of, if you want to know how I feel about protests and all that, I'll just link to that video. And otherwise, Q&A on Sunday and Easter.
That's
Not for a long time. Okay, good. That's it. That's all we got. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you next week. Bye-bye.